everyone to This Week in Svelte. Sorry for my voice, I'm a bit sick. Episode 130, you might have seen that the thumbnail is different on YouTube because, as usual, I forgot to let Karim know what I will talk about, and so I had to improvise a thumbnail. Did you see the thumbnail? Like, I'll switch back to it for a second and just appreciate how cool the number 130 is. Perfection. Okay. Let's jump right into it. Today is also like a small episode, just the changelog. I'm planning, like, I'm starting to organize to get back some hosts, some guests, to talk about their things. But yeah, not everybody is available every time. There is a bit of a like we're getting back into it, but we will do it. We will do it. Let's start with Svelte. So we have 4 new release. Refresh the page. I think I had it open. Nope. I'm really sorry, Antoine. I know that Antoine, for those who doesn't know it, is the guy that made Svelte Changelog, which is super nice, but now I cannot navigate for some reason. Let me see. I guess I can do this. 404. I don't know what happened. Let me see. I don't know. It's fine. It's fine. We got there. Sorry. So let's move to 7 days ago, which is probably after we finish our changelog. And let's see. Fix. Ensure infinite effect loops are cleared after flushing. So yeah, I guess, like, if there is this, I'm pretty sure that, like, by instinct, this is probably yeah, the SPR does 2 things. It augments the effect loop infinite test to ensure that the loop is cleared, and also at a flushing leftover. This is also important for blah 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 as a reason. Okay, so, like, there was another PR that basically broke the infinite loop detection, and Rich discovered it and fixed it. Fix allow K-nan. This is, like, such an edge case, like, but now you can technically. So the point is, if this was not a number, so, like, if you were doing something like key parse int a string, not a number is technically like, I don't know if you know this about JavaScript, but if I open the console and I do nan, not a number, let me zoom in here. If I do nan, oh, come on, nan is equal to n, this is false. And so the issue was that if you had 2, not a number in a key, it was still re-rendering the key block because we were using object.is under the hood, and we had to add a bit of logic to handle a nan key. The text store in each block expression regardless of AST shape. Oh, this is nice. So this is probably, it was the store invalidation detection in each block only checked for identifier and member expression. This goes bind on iteration variable to silently fail when each expression used logical operator and other compounds expression. So, like, if you had something like this, it was not invalidating the store because it was not considered a store because we were just checking for identifier and member expression. So, like, considering that this is a logical expression, it's a different kind. So thank for to Frank FMI. Yeah. Treat menu like UL/OL for accessibility role check. It's actually the first time that I heard about the menu HTML element, which is pretty nice, to be fair. I wonder, like, is this something new? Menu HTML element. Like, I literally never heard of this before. It's baseline widely available, so that's nice. It's very old, actually. I kid you not, I never heard of the menu HTML element. So that's nice. Today I learned. Let's see. Add Vite ignore comment inside dynamic crypto import. If you remember last week, we saw that we had to avoid Cloudflare warnings about not having the node crypto module. We had to do something quite silly. Basically, we had to do this. Await import node plus crypto. So it's like since basically like Cloudflare was using a static analyzer. I think actually ES Build was using a static analyzer for this, and so we added this thing. But then Vite was mad because if you have a dynamic import in Vite, Vite will try to handle that, and so like you need to add a comment, a magic comment, Vite ignore, to say, don't worry, I know that you don't have to take care of this comment. Wrap JSDoc URLs in C and link tags. So this is something that basically when you're linking to some other JSDoc stuff or some other page, like a documentation page, you can wrap it in a C or a link tags, and this will render better. But most importantly, if you then see this documentation inside something that it's using the JSDoc comment to display a page, for example, npmx, you can actually navigate to the proper documentation page. Properly hydrate already resolved async block. So there was an issue where basically if you were using a promise that was already resolved inside an async block, it was not properly hydrating. So that probably there was some extra, like some missing comment. I think like hydration is like it's one of the things that I really struggle to contribute with. At the end of the day, like I can kind of figure it out because I know how hydration works, but it's so hard to reason about comments. Like, where should I put the comment? It should be here, should be at the end, it should be actually there at all. So like it's very hard. Emit each key duplicate error in production. Oh, that's interesting. So like I think this is mostly for yeah. Yeah. So like at the end of the day, like if you have a duplicate key in an each block, like it will error out sooner or later. And so instead of just make it fail with a weird error, we can just like actually throw the correct error so that tools like Sentry or stuff like that can actually pick up the right error and you can fix it better. Exit resolved async block on correct node when hydrating. So once again, like dehydration, basically the point is when you are when there is a resolved async block, when exiting from the block, you need to restore the previous async node, like the previous hydrate node that is before the block, so that you can continue hydrating properly. and it was not properly resolved. So it's probably related to this one here. Feat allow use of createContext when instantiating component programmatically. So this is actually pretty interesting. I've opened a different PR from this one, but that PR added an extra API, which like is not the best thing in the world. But basically what this allows you to do is that, so createContext is a very nice API, and we talked about it in a lot of situations, but basically the createContext API, it's mostly for TypeScript. So like what you can do, I mean, it's not really just for TypeScript, but what you can do is that you can have the createContext API, and what you get back is createContext, and you get back a getter and a setter basically. And so what you can do is that you can set something like, I don't know, 42 inside this component, and then if you have another component, and actually let me do something like this, script module. This is how I generally use the createContext API. So I can import component from component to Svelte, and then I can render the component. Now, obviously, inside the component, I'm not doing much, but I can do this here. So what I'm doing is that I'm creating a context, I'm getting the getter and the setter from createContext, and notice that I don't have to pass any key here. That's the nice thing, like you don't have to deal with key anymore. Because with setContext, you actually just like set a context and then you read the context using that string. But with createContext, you literally just get this get and set back that use a unique key under the hood. And then you can set it, and then in the component, you can actually do import from app.svelte, and you can import get. And then I can say const x is equal to get like this. And then if I do this x, you can see that I'm getting the value that I'm setting here. And if I change this, obviously it is going to change that. Now, what is the issue that we are solving then? The problem is that if you are instead using mount from Svelte, so let's say that instead of doing this, instead of like using the component like this, you are mounting the component. Now, let's say that I do div and I do add attach node, and then I want to mount the component there. Now, if I do this mount component, I need to pass the target, which is the node. Now, in this case, it is working, and I guess, yeah, I guess that's because I'm setting the context here. So if I remove this, you can see an error in the console, which is like missing context. And I'm not sure if this worked before. I mean, I think it might work. So like it is 5.49. Let me see if it was working. 49. So it is still working because you are in a Svelte component that is mounting this thing. But the problem is that if instead of being in a Svelte component, you are inside a, I don't know, test file, you could not set this basically because you need to like set it inside the context of a component. So if you want, you can actually pass context, if I'm not mistaken, with all the keys of the context that you want to mount. So I can say, I don't know, ABC is equal to 42, for example. And if I do this, and here, instead of doing this, I import get context from Svelte, and I do get context ABC. I can't remember. New map. I can't remember specifically how it works. Let me, because I almost never used it. So let me open quickly imperative API. Mount. Mount options. So if we go here, actually let me search for mount options. So mount options has context. Oh, it's a map from any to any. So like instead of, yeah, you need to do new map like this, and this should be object dot entries, this thing. So as you can see, when I mount a component, now this is the same, but if I change this one, you can see that it's reading from here. So like when I mount a component, I can specify like, here's the context that you get. So like when I do get context ABC, if I do AB, it's throwing an error. It's not throwing an error for some reason, but oh, because the context is probably still there. I guess that should throw an error. We'll see. But the point is, I can pass the context. Now, the reason why I can pass the context is because I have the key, which is ABC. In this case, I don't have a key. So how can we do that? And the way to do it right now is to actually, sorry, let me do this. So the way to, like, the way you can do it right now is that if you want to mount something with a context inside your test, you can just wrap your function in a function. So like you can do function wrapper, and then you do this. You do props, and then you return component props like this. So you wrap everything, and then you set the context within this thing here. And so if you do stuff like this, then you render the wrapper instead of oh, we are in the old version. So like, as you can see, in the old version, this cannot work, but if I switch to the latest, it's working. Oh yeah, I'm still I'm still reading the context. Like if I do get instead, this should work. Yeah. So as you can see, I mean, it is a bit hacky if we want, but overall, like you really only need this kind of stuff during testing. So like this basically prevented a new API to be added, which would increase the surface area of the API. And to be fair, it's still pretty chill. We had to make a change to Svelte to allow you to do stuff like this. But now the change is merged, and so like you can do stuff like that. Okay. Please open up. Thanks. Let's see. We have fix render boolean attribute value as empty string for XHTML compliance. So this is something that 7Nick is mostly taking care of. We had people complain about the fact that the HTML that was generated from a Svelte component was not XHTML compatible. Now, XHTML is basically it is a subset, I think, it's a superset, I think, of HTML, which is basically XML compliant. So like HTML is not fully XML compliant. XHTML is fully XML compliant. So there are a lot of stuff like, for example, the name of the tag must be lowercase. the attribute value, if they are empty, like if there's no value, must be empty string, stuff like that. So like we are slowly moving towards a place where every Svelte HTML generated is actually XHTML compliant. This like it will not affect you unless you are actually building a website that has the header of like the content type should be XHTML basically. Uh, I would not suggest to do that because like XHTML can be a bit annoying to deal with. Like if you're sending back an XHTML page, the browser will literally error out if it's not complaining, like if it's not compliant. Um, and like I had this very like just to show you. I don't know if you know Jake Archibald. Is now currently working at Mozilla and Firefox. And sorry for the flashbang, but I think he had a blog post, XHTML, the case against self-closing tag. No. I can't remember. I don't think this is the. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. No, this is actually so sorry for the flashbang, but this is exactly what I was talking about. And this, by the way, is the blog post that actually inspired Svelte to force you to have closing tags to be compliant. So like, but I think it's a good thing. So. XHTML. So like you need to have this like it's served as application XHTML XML, and you can see that like if you open an invalid XHTML, I think it's down. That's annoying. But the point is like. Basically, like if you open an XHTML page that is not fully compliant, it will literally error out and it will not show you anything. While normally browsers, if you have some wrong HTML, they will just try to fix it for you. And the case that Jake made, and I agree, is that like what would you prefer? Like would you prefer to not see the page at all or maybe to see it slightly wrong? Personally, I would prefer to see it slightly wrong. Okay, we have fix, prevent async render tag hydration mismatches. Once again, hydration. I think like all these async, like all these hydration mismatches, they all probably came from like we had a PR where the hydration logic was changed for Derived, if I'm not mistaken. And it was like a bit annoying. Okay, fix resolve effect update depth exceeding when using bind value on select with derived state in legacy mode. That's a lot of stuff. Let me see if we have like some reproduction. Legacy components through effect update when the bound value comes from a reactive statement. Set up select synchronization, create a template effect that called invalidate inner signal, which reads and writes the same signal on every change, creating an infinite loop. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so this should hopefully so like this was actually a pretty old pretty old issue. So like in a legacy component, if you had something like this, it was causing an infinite loop. But now if we move to latest, it should not error anymore. So that's nice. That's nice. And by the way, like, please, if you have some very old issues on the Svelte repo, feel free to tag me even on Discord, because like, unfortunately, some of the issues are like gets like less attention maybe for a second, and then they scroll past like the second or third page. So yeah, feel free to ping me. I'll try to get to those issues as soon as possible. Fix non-swallow DOM exception when media.play fails in bind paused. So like when you have bind paused, we invoke media.play if post switch to false, and it sometimes could throw a DOM exception, and it was swallowed before, but then it gives you basically no information about what's happening, and so like now it's actually rethrown. Provide proper public type for parse CSS result. So like the parse CSS result did not have a type, but that meant that when we are using parse CSS, we had to basically replicate a weird type, omitting stuff everywhere. Robustify blocker calculation. So like the blocker is when you are awaiting more promises on the script tag, we calculate which promise depends on which other promise. And so this had a bit of a problem, and now it is not anymore. This is also pretty interesting. Reduce if block nesting. So like this was a weird issue where basically closes, yeah, where basically like since we are doing a bunch of like especially for the if tag, we are doing a lot of nested calls. What could happen, like what was happening, is that if you open the playground at this version, like even just 42 like nested API, like nested component rendering basically was rendering like it was, given that you have this like a lot of if you see the JS output, there are a lot of like nested function call, and this meant that in just 42 levels of nesting, which is still a lot to be fair, people were getting a maximum call stack. And now if we move to the latest version, this is not an issue anymore, and I think Simon said that you can go up to 320. 320 probably like 220 for 290. Yeah, it's a bit less in dev mode because we are adding a bunch of yeah, it's 272 in dev and 320 in prod. Level of nesting, and I guess it's also specifically if you have all this if here, that is problematic because you are like doing a bunch of extra API call on top of that. Not API call, sorry, of extra wrapping with functions on top of that. Okay, take into account node name case sensitivity on XHTML pages. Once again, we are slowly moving toward XHTML compliance. Render multiple and selected attributes as empty string for XHTML compliance. Again, always lowercase XHTML elements for XHTML compliance. Once again, I mean, to be fair, I don't know, like there is a comment inside this PR because we were talking, and I think that like this probably shouldn't be Svelte responsibility. You can see that like this is what I said. Like you know, if you're writing XHTML and you purposely write code that does not adhere with what you are serving, and expect Svelte to correct that, then screw you. Obviously, like I was a bit like purposely harsh, but the point is, I don't think this should be Svelte's responsibility. Like if you write something like input, you are writing components that are not XHTML compliant. So like you could not expect to do this and then be XHTML compliant, in my opinion. But I mean, we could do it, so like it's fine. Freeze effect inside Derived when disconnecting, unfreeze on reconnect. So this is once again like especially the freezing and the like. I think freeze and unfreeze, like this is a new concept that was introduced in this PR, probably. Yeah, exactly. Freezing effect inside Derived when those derived are disconnected, and unfreezing them when they reconnect. Effects are destroyed when the derived is disconnected and then never recreated. So effects created inside derived statement are not re-executed when the derived is accessed after being disconnected and reconnected to the reactive dependency graph. Component creates a derived with effect. Component A unmounts before effect have a chance to execute. Component B tries to access the same derived. The effects are never executed even though the derived value is computed correctly. When a derived is disconnected from the graph, its effects are destroyed. When the derived is later reconnected, okay, so basically the point is if you have an effect inside the derived and the effect never runs because like the derived are only really so basically like the effect only execute when you actually read the derived, right? And so the point is, since those like this derived is read for the first time inside that's just too complex to explain it, but so like this derived result is only read when this is executed, right? Like I mean, this is like I love the fact that like look at how complex the reproduction for this is. This kind of like is good because it means that like those are real edge cases, but it is definitely a bug anyway. So like I'm not saying that we don't have these bugs. Regardless, the point is the effect is not executed immediately, right? So when you read result, this function is executed to compute the value. The effect does not run immediately, and then the component is unmounted. And since the component is unmounted, the dependency of like the derived does not have a dependency anymore, and it's destroyed, and the effect inside is destroyed. And so when then it's read once again, since the effect inside was destroyed, it's not re-executed because it does not have the dependency. And so Rich fixed it by freezing the effect inside. So instead of destroying it, it's just freezing them and then unfreezing it when they reconnect. Propagate effect errors to Svelte boundary. This I think it's interesting. So like if you throw an error inside an effect, now it's also propagated to the parent boundary. So like if you have a test.svelte which has an effect that throws, and you render the component inside a boundary, previously it basically will not prior to this commit, which is this commit. Okay, so like it was an issue. So like basically the point is if you are throwing an error inside an effect and that effect is running a component inside the Svelte boundary, now the bundler is actually catching the error inside the component, which is nice. Okay, this was released yesterday. Let's see if we have a new SvelteKit release. Feed adds scroll property to navigation target in navigation callbacks. This is nice because basically now before navigate, on navigate, and after navigate include the scroll position information via the scroll property on, from, and to target, which means that inside before navigate, on navigate, and after navigate, you can now read like where was the scroll position and where it will go, the scroll position. So you can either calculate something based on that, or like animating transition based on the target scroll position when using browser back and forward navigation. So like it's a very nice minor change. Hydratables injected script now work with CSP. Once again, like CSP, I already talked about that. It's something that I absolutely hate. I mean, like I have to deal with it sometimes, but it's content security policy, which basically describe if you have a content security policy on your page, it's basically describing what you can and cannot import or execute. Like there is a CSP to avoid inline style, to avoid inline script and such and stuff like that. Put preloads before styles. So this basically preload, I guess, like both the styles and the script tag now are put before styles. Suppress false positive inner content warning when children prop is forwarded to a child component. So this is the warning that you get if you have a layout without a children prop. Because it's telling you, hey, you will not render anything. But if it is forwarded to the child component, then it's probably fine. Fetch not working when URL is same host but different than paths.base. Okay. Navigate to hash link when base element is present. Okay. Avoid triggering a handle error when redirecting in a remote function. Because obviously, if you are redirecting, you're not erroring out. Like it is an error, the redirect, but you're not erroring out. Include test directory in generated tsconfig JSON alongside existing test entry. Okay, so like this is the generated tsconfig. So like when you do SvelteKit sync, it creates a tsconfig for you that then it's imported from the main one. And the test directory is now included. Generates tsconfig using the value of kit files source. Okay, that's it. Let's see, we have a new release of adapter auto, update adapter Netlify to version 6. Oh, we have actually a major. Oh no, that's actually a pretty old major. Adapter Cloudflare. Error if roots.json is in the static public directory. Oh, I guess that was a conflict. Correctly handle path names found in redirects file. And update dependencies. Adapter Netlify. There's a new major, so if you are using adapter Netlify, now platform context is now the modern Netlify function context. Previously was the AWS Lambda style context. If you were using this in your application, unlikely, you will need to update your code to read from the new fields. So if you were using platform.context in your Netlify adapter, you also need to update your code. Migrate to modern Netlify, allow configuring redirects in netlify.toml. The limitation of only being able to configure redirects via redirects has been removed. Populate app platform with context properly. Blah, 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 blah. Adapter node. Validate origin and var at startup. So when you start up your node application, it's validating the origin. Update dependencies. That's it. Let's see. We have a new release of enhanced image, upgrade Vite image tools to 9.0.3 to fix for a caching bug. New release of Acorn TypeScript, parse private method overloads. So like if you have an overload on a private method in TypeScript, now it's correctly parsed. Exit scope for bodiless class methods to pass export validation. What the fuck is that? So exit scope for bodiless class methods to pass export validation. I'm curious, guys, sorry. So like this is like methods without bodies. Oh, abstract and overload. Okay, so like if you have export and then you have a class A, like this, this is saying that A is not defined because these methods here are bodiless. So like there are basically like either overloads or and the reason for this, just to explain how, like, why this was problematic. So in the parser, in the TypeScript parser, what is happening is that like you have a scope, right? And so what was happening is that when you had something like this, it was failing to exit the scope when you had a situation like this. And by failing to exit the scope, this const A was basically included in the scope of the class. And so when you tried to export A, it was not finding the class. So like it's pretty nice fix. Parse generic types in object methods, getters, and setters. So before it was not parsing the generic types in an object, and now it is. Support decorators on abstract classes. Yeah, that's actually pretty nice. Like the fact that you can now parse even the decorators. ESLint config, upgrade globals to 17. ESLint plugin Svelte. Add support for ESLint version 10. Well, yeah, that's a new version of ESLint. Fit no navigation without resolve for links. The rule now reports on the whole attributes. Okay, I guess. 3 new release of SV. Let's see. Okay. I'm not sure. I think we already went to that. I don't know. Remove pico colors for style text of node utils. So this is something interesting because like pico colors is a way to like style the CLI output, but now it's actually built into Node with style text, and so you can use that. Bump default version, bump ES wrap, bump globals, better management of logs during install. Yeah, I remember, didn't we talk about this last week? I think we did, right? Remove Lucia from official add-on. I think we did talk about this. I don't know. Oh, probably because I didn't open this page. That's why it's still open. So like, this is the new one basically. So drizzle default.env with Turso is now using file localDB. Work also with svelte.config.ts. Because now, by the way, you can also use svelte.config.typescript instead of svelte.config.js. Let's see. We have a new release of ESWrap. ESWrap is is the library that we use to take an AST and convert that into actual JavaScript. So print function accessibility, okay. Super type parameters, print override keyword, okay. That's nice. And I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. So thanks for watching. Thanks for joining me today. Sorry for being a bit sick. Sorry for my nasal voice. I hope you learned something. Oh, by the way, this is nice. This is, I think it adds, like, this is the npmx link. So Antoine added a direct link to npmx. That's nice. Okay. Regardless, thank you for watching. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye bye.